Recently we had Suki and Ego converse, and during their conversation, Ego's past was once again brought up, with our first glimpse of Ego's past truly shown, as he goes on to talk about his 7 minutes of glory. Now I'll probably make another video on what exactly that is in extensive details, but if you've seen my Noel and Ego theory from earlier, then you should already have a hunch to what it will be. But for this video, what happens if I told you we may already know who Ego Jinpachi is? Because about a month ago, another Blue Lock creator called Suki reached out and messaged me, mentioning something that just makes perfect sense. And so before starting the video, please like and subscribe as I'm trying to hit 5k by the end of the year, and also a huge shout out to Suki and support them too.
Hello everyone, it's Suki here and I'm honored to appear on the channel. You'll hear more from me later in the video.
So who is Ego Jinpachi? Well, we don't know many adults in the Blue Lock universe, and no, it's not going to be Patra's dad or someone like that. And so who could it possibly be? Well, the answer is a bit more complex than that, because it's less of an individual person we know and more the abstract implication that he is someone in the real world that we know, who exists in the Blue Lock world, and that is none other than the pro player Shinji Kagawa. To understand why they are the same, we need to look at everyone involved in the story. Like, we know there are pros like Ronaldo, Pele, Messi, etc. who exist in both real life and in the actual story, but we also know that some pro players in the series are modelled after people in real life too. The biggest example is Julian Loki, who is modelled after the pro player Mbappe. I don't think it needs too much elaboration given his playstyle, appearance and even posing that resembles him. Now there are some other cases people have mentioned where some players resemble aspects of real life players, including Adam Blake being Harry Kane, Chris Prince being Ronaldo, Snuffy being in a mix of Ibrahimovic in the essence of his success on teams and leagues, while also sharing some stuff from Modric and Cruyff. But those are more debatable and not as clear cut as Loki being Mbappe. However, another person the community has collectively agreed to be related between universes is Noel Noa resembling Lewandowski. If we look at Noah's profile, they both share similar ages, at the time, similar appearance, same number, the fact they were regarded as the best around that time too, and the fact he played on Bayern Munich, the counterpart to his current team, Berserk Munich. Like, there's a lot of similarities where if you just typed Noah Lewandowski, you'll get hundreds of results because that's just the general consensus. Well, if Noah is based on Lewandowski, then if Ego was his teammate, then that may hint to who exactly Ego is, and why he is modelled after Shinji Kagawa. I also want to go on a side tangent, because personally it bugs me so much in their universe that people don't research, like at all. ECU doesn't seem to even recognise another new Gen 11 player like Bunny, and even didn't know Ego. Sure, he could change his hairstyle, put on some glasses, etc., but don't forget everything is broadcast in the NEL, and the second you found out that Noah and Ego were teammates, you'd have so many online detectives that would go out of their way to figure out who exactly he is. So back on track. If we look at Noah, we see him state, over 10 years ago I heard the same theory from his first rival being Ego Jinpachi. So at the beginning of his career, we know that he had a solid relationship and rivalry. Now if we take the literal statement over 10 years ago as a distinctive fact, then the theory may fall flat. However, if the timelines tweak at least a little in the fictional story, then it can work. I bring this up because even in 2018 and 2019, Lewandowski was not seen as the best player. He was only regarded as the best in 2020, which has not happened yet in the story, since it's currently only the middle of 2019 in the fictional timeline. So there has to be some leeway in the way the time frame operates anyway. So let's look at Lewandowski's past. Well, when he first started out, he played for a youth club and some low tier clubs, until around 2010 where he joined Lech Poznan, a team in the Polish Ekstraklasa, which was the top league in Poland, where they placed well in the tournament. Mind you, it's not like the Polish league is that highly regarded anyway. If you check some of the global rankings online, the general opinion puts it closer to J-League than other top European leagues. Something to note is that Lewandowski was amazing basically since his debut as a pro. He was the top goal scorer in both the 3rd and 2nd division Poland tournaments, and as a result was sought after, and so eventually Lewandowski got his first real break in a real league as he got an offer from Borussia Dortmund, which is a team in the Bundesliga, the top German football league. This was his first chance at an actual good league.
So what's so special about this club besides being a top tier German club? Well, let's just look at the roster. In 2010, when Lewandowski joined the team, we had none other than his special teammate Shinji Kagawa, who was a respected Japanese footballer, also part of the squad. From his entry, we know he was the first player in Japan to sign a professional contract before graduating from high school, except players promoted from youth teams of the J-League clubs. So it was a big deal that this kid could join an overseas team, and so his story is similar to what we know from Sai, a top-tier young prospect who went overseas. Now 2010 is technically not over 10 years ago, since it's set in 2019 March of when we know from Noah, which is why some leeway in the time frame may be needed since the timing is roughly correct anyway. If both Shinji Kagawa and Lewandowski were both teammates for 2 years, it makes perfect sense that they were friends and rivals at the same time in their role, similar to how Isagi and Kaiser became rivals on the same team. Mind you, both Lewandowski and Kagawa played to an extremely high level in those 2 years while at Dortmund, and the start of both players' notoriety and careers. During the stints together, their playstyle was similar to that of Kaiser and Isagi, ironically enough. Whoever was in the better position to score would get the goal. However, there are some plays of Kagawa and Isagi that were similar, like using their opponents as shield to their own teammates even, so they could get their own goal. Or Kagawa doing the playmaking dirty work like Isagi did for Bayern Munich, where he would track back all the time and then have to give the pass to Lewandowski to get the goal in. Kagawa was the intelligent mastermind behind the plays who also tracked back quite a bit like Isagi to make the plays he envisioned a reality, and Lewandowski would always finish with a wonderful goal.
But hold up, Borussia Dortmund, that sounds familiar. Well, do you remember the first team that gave Isagi an offer and stated to be the second best team in the German league? Well, that was Berserk Dortmund, none other than the counterpart to Borussia Dortmund in the fictional world. So if Isagi is a player who is similar to Ego and brought success to Berserk Dortmund when younger, then maybe they are trying to recapture this young Japanese prodigy who brought success into the team by recruiting Isagi. This club was distinctly shown by Kaneshiro for a reason and highlighted, and this is probably why. Berserk Dortmund is the team that Noah and Ego played alongside each other. But it's not just that, there is actually one other instance that Berserk Dortmund is mentioned in the series. If we look at the extra volume where all the club offers are shown, look who we have here, Berserk Dortmund, and they made another offer. They made an offer to Kunigami, you know, the man who is slowly building up to become a Noah clone. So you're telling me that the two people that this team tried to recruit are both Isagi and Kunigami, who are just Ego 2.0 and Noah 2.0 respectively.
Coincidence? I think not!
This team was 100% trying and aiming to recapture the same spark they had a decade ago to create the next best striker like they did with Noah. But even if Isagi didn't choose that team, he still got an offer from Bayern Munich and therefore will play in the Bundesliga, and therefore a similar initial journey to Ego and Noah when they first started playing.
But if we're considering scouts from teams, there's another big topic to discuss, being Ray Dark. When we're first introduced to the series, we see Noah's past briefly mentioned, where we know he grew up in the slums and Ego talks about how football saves him. There are so many theories floating around revolving Ray Dark, including a great theory from Serena Rosa herself, speculating Noah is one of the random teenagers struggling that FIFA took in as an experiment when creating top-tier football players. You could even say the same for Dada Silva, but we don't know just enough yet to judge him on. For Ego, the fact that he has no interest in anything but soccer gives a lot of Saitoshi vibes, as he himself had the same mindset of putting his best interest into soccer at the age of 1. So he could have been a prodigy like Sai, as they both traveled overseas very early in their careers. But why did I bring up Ray Dark? The thing is, Ray Dark has been shown to evolve in positions from a FIFA scout in chapter 260, which takes place in 2014, since this was when Kaiser was 15 according to his report, to the FIFA chair seat unless he was immediately promoted to president immediately. My point is, with all that experience around FIFA, it wouldn't surprise me if Ray Dark was the coach of Berserk Dortmund during Ego and Noah's time there. With the same means Sai and Kaiser fell into PIFA's hands, I could see the same happening to Noah and Ego during their 3-year span there. This makes sense based off of the fact that with the real-life coach from Borussia Dortmund being Jurgen Klopp, a German manager who did a phenomenal job recruiting Borussia Dortmund youngbloods who turned into superstars like Kagawa and Lewandowski, Even in Liverpool, he got Mo Salah, Firmino, Van Dijk, and Becker to all join the dominant Liverpool side that won a Premier League, Champions League, and some league cups as well. His IQ for the game is very good, and his extravagant eye for talent is extravagantly good. So if Jurgen Klopp currently resigning from being a manager after his very terrible run with Liverpool, it correlates perfectly with Ray Dark doing the same in his role to FIFA chairman. And so if Ray Dark is similar to Klopp, then after Noah and Ego left, he could have potentially transitioned into a scout position where he went on to recruit people like Ito Shisai or Kaiser, people who were similar to both Noah and Ego. And those people he recruited that succeeded would all go on to become rising stars and referred to them as the new generation 11 players. Then through his accolades and success of his coaching and scouting ability, eventually promoted to the FIFA president. It's pretty interesting how in real life Lewandowski was called upon by Sir Alex Ferguson to join Manchester United, but Dortmund valued him very highly, more highly than Kagawa, as they allowed Manchester United to take him. Similar to how Noah and the world values Kaiser more than Isagi except for his own fan base. So now this begs the question, if Ego joined popular teams like Berserk Dortmund and Manchester United, why was he not known by most of the internet, and why was Anri the one to find him? Considering the fact that her favorite player is Thierry Henry, it wouldn't be unexpected she watched his national France games and saw him play with Noel Noa. The fact that she is consistently updating player data in Blue Lock would show how proficient she is with soccer research, especially since she scouted around 300 players too. So if she did enough research about Noah in club football, and she would find out about Ego, considering Manchester United had an Asian legend in Park Ji-sung, it wouldn't be surprising if she found out about him through Manchester United. Alternatively, it doesn't take much research for her to find him, as even if she was an Arsenal fan like Raito, she could have just watched Ego play for Manchester United and dominate Arsenal 8-2 if she continued following the Premier League. Like, there's a good chance she witnessed Ego's rise as a top player in Dortmund, or she could have seen him before he started to regress and fade from the road.
Something else to note is Kagawa's jersey number, because I think 23 has more significance than you'd think. Now we see Ego has his number 11 jersey in his memory, but we don't know when and where that was. Like, he could have changed jersey on his next team or following year, etc. So what's so special about 23? Well, first thing to remember is that he only wanted 23 people on his team for a 26-person squad. It could be a coincidence, and probably is, but I'll give the benefit of doubt Kaneshiro did it for a reason. But the more important reason for 23 being important is actually Hiyori. When he was training before Blue Lock, he was wearing that number, and even now Hiyori is wearing it in the U20 World Cup. So Hiyori is sharing the same number as Kagawa, which honestly kinda makes sense too. Like, Hiyori was offered to Manchester United, the same club that went on to give Kagawa an offer in real life. I bring this up because Ego actually may be closer to Hiyori than you'd think. We know he is similar to Isagi and by extension Sai, all people who have similarities along with each other. One of the biggest things shared alongside them is actually my belief they changed to be midfielders or positions. Like, Sai changed to be more of a midfielder, Hiyori changed stream from being a striker to someone who can create the best striker, and Isagi was asked numerous times to swap positions, however has not caved in yet, because his ego won't let him. I honestly think Ego shares striking similarity with Hiyori and their future. As we know with the Ubers game, we had Hiyori basically give up and then reignite his passion in the last few minutes of the game, where he performed to a level we have not seen from him again. If you said the god of football was looking down on Hiyori to assist Isagi, I wouldn't even disagree. Like, we could have had a similar situation where he passes to Noah and helped him score, which is part of my old Noah Ego theory. This could have been similar to the 7 minutes Ego experienced. In my mind, Ego is a lot like Hiyori in the sense I think he was mechanically and individually better than Isagi at his time. However, he changed his dream to be similar to Hiyori's, where he didn't really care about being the number one striker, but more so just the number one egoist. I know this sounds counterintuitive and seems to go against Ego's ideology, but we don't actually know Ego's true ego, as we don't really know him on a personal level to gauge this. Or do we? In Blue Lock, we have different eye types and each has a different meaning. One of those is what we call the desire eyes, and it's basically those black eyes that spiral. And the general consensus is that it shows the true desires and ambitions of a person at the time. For Ego Jinpachi, we have seen those eyes numerous times from him before, and it's never about being the best striker himself, it's always been about creating the world's best striker and egoist. Something that's more similar to Hiyori's mentality than any other character in the series. Even Noah acknowledged that he cared more about creating the best, and in a recent chapter wished Isuki can surpass him. Coupled with the fact that anytime dreams are mentioned, Ego is always aiming to create something, then becoming something. So to me, I think Ego is similar to Hiyori and Sai in the sense they are amazing individually, where his ego was never to be the world's best striker, but relates to elevating someone else with their own skill, which is what happened with Noah, as he was key to his awakening and reaching the best.
A lot of theories relating to Ego's career end up in one of two paths. The first being similar to Nagi, he lost the fire inside of himself as he got satisfied, and the second relating to injury. If it's the latter case, then something else to consider is we know Ego was the one who chose Chigiri, and it's kind of wholesome if this theory becomes true that both of these players played in different sides of Manshine, with Yu being the one that started the massive spell of injuries for Ego and riding the bench, and Manshine City being the one that brought Chigiri back to his best self. The reason Ego could have brought Chigiri could have been him reflecting on how God stopped favoring him after all those injuries and the time on the bench, so he quit football and wanted to be a god who could do Chigiri a favor and revive his soccer career. Now, speaking about the death of soccer careers, we have to talk about Hiyori. During Ego's time in Europe, Kagawa, who was Ego's counterpart, wore the number 23, the same number Hiyori has been wearing except the first selection and exhibition match. So with 23 being the number of Ego's death, the number that saved Hiyori was 11, being Isaki. The same number that was Ego's last spell in football, being 11 for Ego himself.
If you remember my old theory before, I stated they played together on the same team where Ego assisted Noah the game-winning goal, then it also makes sense if they played in Dortmund in this game. Like in both the 2010 to 2011 season and in the 2011 to 2012 seasons, Dortmund placed first. And so if Ego and Noah are those respective players, then there's a good chance they won together while on the time on Berserk Dortmund in their fictional world. But as we know, eventually Ego will fall off and Noah will go on to become the world's best striker, which is my next point. After those 2 years together as friends and rivals, they would go on to their separate ways, where my current headcanon is that Noah wants to get even stronger and needed another challenge on another team, and so Noah went on to join Bayern Munich akin to Lewandowski joining Bayern Munich, and Ego Jinpachi going to Manchester United similar to Kagawa joining.
However, Lewandowski actually stayed longer in Dortmund than Kagawa, as Kagawa left in the 2012-13 season and Lewandowski left ahead of the 14-15 season. But something interesting is that Lewandowski agreed to play for United in 2012 but was denied by Dortmund. So similarly, we could have seen Noah wanting to continue to play with Ego but couldn't, and so their paths would go on to diverge. So with Ego in the latest chapter confirming he was a big dreamer and playing at a prime Manchester United would fit his character very well. Potentially those 7 minutes could have been in a Champions League game where United played against Dortmund, where Ego would have experienced his own Nagi moments as he defeated Noah but went on to never be able to replicate it again. Now, we are not saying Noah and Ego played 3 years with each other and that their timelines are exactly the same with the current canon timelines of real life football, but instead using that as a reference to base it into the Blue Lock timeline. This makes sense as in the rough Blue Lock timeline, Ego x Noah did happen 10 years ago from the NEL stated by Noah, so the same things could have happened in real life but a few years earlier. This is my last lines for the video, so I want to say thanks again Akira for having me on the channel, and to those watching, stay blessed, Suki out. Now back to the video.
So judging by their real life counterparts, then the journey between Ego and Noah also aligns pretty well. Eventually Lewandowski would go on to be the second highest goal scorer in the Bundesliga and gain a reputation as one of the best strikers in the world. Meanwhile, Kagawa went to United and struggled on the team, eventually returning back to J-League and not being able to hit the same level as he once did. You could say he eventually hit a wall or his talents with it, etc. Which if you look at Ego's description of overseas plays, then it does appear to be reflecting on the journey that he himself experienced as a young prodigy who went to Berserk Dortmund, succeeded and went to another club, struggled on Manchester United and eventually returned to J-League because he was not good enough. But here comes the biggest issue with the theory, and that is all the way in chapter 1, and it has to do with Kira. In Ego Jinpachi's speech, we have him interrupted where Kira goes on to say his heroes, and there are two names he mentions, firstly being Honda and second being none other than Kagawa himself. So in their world, we know that Kagawa apparently exists, but it could be similar to how Ronaldo exists but Chris Prince seems to resemble him. But this is why I think Kagawa is reflected on Ego rather than him being Shinji Kagawa exactly. Like the essence of his story and history will be shared, but the personality and character may not be exactly him. Also, I find it so funny if he is actually based on Kagawa. Imagine having Kira talking up to his hero Kagawa and praising him, and he's basically saying like, nah, I'm shit, your beliefs are trash, and criticizing you. But this brings up the second issue with him being Kagawa exactly. If he was a fan favorite player and highly regarded, surely one of the 300 people would recognize him. Like he can get no sleep, get a yee ass haircut and put thick glasses on, but you would still be a recognizable player to someone. So in essence, I think Ego is part Kagawa, at least his history, while mixed with some details the author added, to make him his own thing without making him a one-to-one with the real life player. I'm guessing his journey overseas was cut shorter than Kagawa and fell off much faster, leading him to quit. And the main reason comes from his satisfaction, which was the thing that caused his talent to wither away on a new team. If Ego's true, Ego was relating to making the best striker, then winning the league and making Lewandowski the best striker could have been the thing that finally made him satisfied, and it ended up killing his career. He won the German league, created the best striker, and just like how Nagi went on to fail, we have Ego encounter the same trajectory where he believed his talents withered away. Given his speech about the 7 minutes, it just seems so likely that he believes that his talents exceeded his skills, and his whole anger towards Nagi in general is because he sees himself in Nagi. Like it feels like he is clearly self-projecting his feelings anytime Nagi is involved. An arrogant fool who could have continued to be the best but prematurely ended his career. The only difference is that Nagi has the fire to bounce back and will show how a withered talent can in fact survive. Thinking about it, Nagi is just like his own cactus, where an overwatered cactus can still survive, and just like that, Nagi can too. And so now Ego remains a dreamer who came back to create another egoist who can challenge the monster he created in Noah. With that being said, thanks for watching, subscribe to Suki, and as always, Buddha be praised and have a good day.